Hi, I'm Jordan.
And I'm Kit.
Welcome to Starry Time,
Asterism's edition
where stars plus lines equal stories.
with an asterisk.
In these episodes, we'll explore ideas, concepts, or people that didn't make it into the main show, or that we want to talk about more.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about muses in Greek mythology and any astronomical objects named after them.
In Greek mythology, the Muses were essentially a personification of different forms of knowledge. This is something of a departure from our use of the word muse now, of course, to mean someone or a person who inspires you to create art.
Yeah, for the ancient Greeks and Romans, they were inspirational, but because they themselves were knowledge. But the number and names of them have varied across different sources.
There are at least three common sets of muses across ancient Greek and Roman sources. Some, like Varro and Pausanias, say there are three muses called Melete or practice, Mneme or memory, and Aodi or song.
There are two other sets of names for these three muses. So the first is Nete, Mese, and Hepete, which are chords for the lyre. Apologies to anybody who plays the lyre and knows what those should be pronounced as. And then the second set is somehow even more complicated, and it's Cepheso, Apollonius, and Ber- Borysthenes is my best guess at that, but I'm not totally sure.
Baristhenes.
Sure.
A second tradition says there were four muses, but for our purposes, we'll go with our guys, Hesiod and Homer.
And so we'll say that there are basically nine muses, and we'll go through each of them with the following dominions that they sort of control. So Calliope is one muse. She was the muse of epic poetry, and it'll be really important as we go through. To distinguish specific kinds of poetry because different muses are associated with different kinds of poetry. So, Calliope is associated with epic poetry.
Next, we have Clio, who was the muse of history.
Our third muse is Polyhymnia, who was the muse of sacred poetry and hymns, and also pantomime.
Wait, pantomime like miming?
Yeah, apparently it was all the rage in ancient Rome. Though, when I was reading a little bit more into the history of pantomime, it seems like in ancient Rome, this was a little bit more similar to interpretive dance than our current concept of a mime. So yeah, there's a whole deep dive there on history of pantomime. So if anybody's curious, it's a good rabbit hole. But she is also sometimes associated with geometry, meditation, and agriculture for some reason that I'm like not totally clear on.
Our fourth muse is Euterpe,
Yeah, Euterpe. It's a great name.
and she is the muse of lyric poetry and music.
The fifth muse is Terpsichore, and she is the muse of dance and chorus.
Sixth up, we have Erato, who is the muse of erotic lyric poetry.
Spicy.
Would do very well in the romantasy market. Seventh, we have the muse of tragedy, Melpomene.
And our eighth muse is Thalia, who would love our podcast because she is the muse of comedy and also idyllic poetry.
And her love of the pod would be second only to the final, but by no means last muse, Urania, who is the muse of astronomy and astrology.
Oh, she would have loved season one on the zodiac constellations of this podcast.
Of that, I have no doubt.
So these are the nine most commonly named muses from ancient Greco Roman mythology, and often they are said to be the children of Zeus.
Shocking. Truly shocking.
So they're the children of Zeus and Mnemosyne, who is a Titaness, meaning she is one of the daughters of Gaia and Uranus.
Mnemosyne is the goddess of memory and, incidentally, also Zeus's aunt.
The Greek mythology family tree is like very, it's very twisty.
Evidently, Zeus slept with Mnemosyne while disguised as a shepherd for 9 consecutive nights, which is how they ended up with the 9 muses.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
It's also not really clear why Mnemosyne wasn't imprisoned with the other Titans. Or I guess maybe it makes perfect sense since Zeus was the one leading that charge.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Zeus does what he wants. Okay, he does. It's good to be the king of the gods. So,
Sometimes you
oh,
just gotta disguise yourself as a shepherd for 9 consecutive nights.
seems excessive. Okay, so now we've got our nine muses with their various areas of expertise. So let's talk a little bit more about the myths that they appear in and the roles that they played in Greco-Roman mythology.
One of their central jobs was to entertain the other gods and goddesses on Mount Olympus and at various weddings for more minor deities like Harmonia, the daughter of Thetis and Nereus, who married the mortal king Cadmus.
I bet they put on a really good show. And I guess these weddings are paid for by the bride's family in this case, so that
Oh,
makes sense.
oh, definitely. In fact, the Muses also performed at the wedding of Thetis and Peleus. And yes, this is the very same Thetis, Nereid mother of Achilles, though Peleus is not the father of Achilles. It gets complicated. But they did also sing at the funeral of Achilles, among other heroes. So if you can pay the booking fee, these muses
Yeah.
will show up.
Yeah, there's just like that whole all of these people, so many messed up myths, things about Peleus and Achilles, like yeesh, yeah.
King of the my ankle himself.
Well, we're not here to talk about Achilles. Instead, let's talk about what messed up things the Muses got up to, because the Muses feature in the story of Orpheus.
Which we discuss and wreck constellation in the episode on the constellation, the lyre. Long story short, our guy Orpheus, pretty good at the lyre,
Mhm.
enchanted the gods to such an extent that allowed him to get his dead beloved wife Eurydice from the underworld. Of course, Hades had one small condition. And of course, our guy Orpheus blew it all up and went home in despair. And then he failed in his grief to worship Dionysus. So Dionysus sent his squads, the Menaids, just to rip him apart.
Yeah, just really super chill guy. And we have an episode all about the Maenads in myth and astronomy in the back catalog if you wanted to learn more about them. But yes, what we didn't talk about very much during that episode was that Orpheus's mother was Calliope, the muse. And after he was torn apart by his adoring fans, the muses collected his body parts so that they could bury him.
The Muses are also seen alongside a variety of other gods and goddesses like Artemis and Apollo, the Graces, Hermes, and even is said to have taught the Sphinx a riddle in one source. But many of the myths about them involve them competing with others in terms of their artistic and scientific skill, and then, of course, punishing the loser, who is usually some idiot mortal.
It's a very classic classic Greek mythology, yes.
I love it every time. In one story, Thamyris, who was described by pseudo Apollodorus as, quote, a handsome person and a skilled
Mm.
citharist, entered a contest of musical skill versus the Muses. What did he want if he was to win? World fame, perhaps?
Mm.
Even better skills? Riches? No, 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 no. He wanted to sleep with all of the Muses.
Well, I'm not rooting for this mortal.
But it works out great, since, spoilers, he obviously lost, and they stripped him of his musical abilities and then proceeded to blind or maim him, depending again on whether you ask Homer or pseudo Apollodorus. So, Thamyris 0 for 9.
The Muses were also challenged to a competition by the Sirens, the bird women singers who lured sailors to their death.
That seems like a tough one, though. Sirens versus Muses?
Unfortunately, the Sirens lost, and the Muses made crowns out of the feathers that they plucked from the Sirens before the Sirens threw themselves into the ocean.
Damn, brutal.
It's even worse, though, because one particular muse, Terpsichore, didn't join in. Why, you might ask? Oh, because the Sirens were her children.
Tough time of it back then.
Really tough family. Your sisters challenge your daughters to a competition and then essentially skin your it's too much to think about.
Well, I mean, at least they did use the feathers to make crowns. They could have used them to make something derogatory, but obviously they still had some respect for the sirens, right?
Mm.
Question mark. Speaking of families, in another myth from Ovid, a king named his 9 daughters after the Muses.
Oh, that seems nice,
Yeah, when you got 9, it writes
right?
itself, but
Mhm.
come on now, kid. The 9 daughters, they wound up forming their own band or something and were called the Pierides. They challenged the Muses to a contest and, well, they lost. Our dear beloved Pierides.
Mm.
And the Muses at that point got to have their fun and games, as they always do when they pull out a W, and promptly turned these 9 daughters into birds. Possibly, according to Antoninus Liberalis, into 9 different birds. The ones he suggests are the grebe, the wryneck, the ortolan, the jay, the greenfinch, the goldfish, the duck, the woodpecker, and the draconis pigeon.
This is like my nightmare being turned into a bird.
If you had to choose, Kit, though, like which one would you pick?
A lot of these are so bad. Like nobody wants to be a duck or a woodpecker or whatever type of pigeon this is. I'm afraid to look. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what bird. This is a really challenging question.
Anyways, we'll have to do a separate asterism about that one day, I hope.
Well, let us know over at Storytime Pod at the Universidon server of Macedon what bird you'd like to turn into if you lost against the Muses. One final notable myth for our Muses is when a king of Thrace invited the Muses to his palace and then he tried to trap them there. They obviously escaped, but he jumped off a tower chasing them and then died.
These guys are kind of like Kevin McAllister in Home Alone. They really, really like setting up the mortals to fail. It's a rough set of myths.
Very rough and not for the faint of heart.
Now that we've talked about who the Muses are and about some of their myths, let's see where and how they crop up in astronomy.
So let's start with Urania, the muse of astronomy and astrology. As someone who's named after Uranus, she's also partially responsible for everyone's favorite planet, Uranus. But but there's also observatories located in several countries named after her specifically. Clio's name is also used as an acronym for a prototype of a gravitational wave detector called the Cryogenic Laser Interferometer Observatory.
Most often, though, we see Muse asteroids, including 22 Calliope, which has its own moon, and 600 Musa for all the Muses together.
Most of these asteroids are in what's called the main asteroid belt, which is located between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter.
The other groups of asteroids in our solar system include the Centaurs, Kuiper Belt, Jupiter Trojans, which is split into a Trojan camp and a Greek camp, the Hilda family, and of course, way out there in the back in the cheap seats, the Oort cloud.
I think we probably could do a whole separate asterism on all those other asteroid populations in the future. So for now, let's just talk about the main belt.
I mean, the main asteroid belt almost 1 AU in width. So, despite being called the main asteroid belt, it's actually the smallest ring-shaped group in the solar system, and it's closer to the center between 2.2 and 3.2 AU from the sun.
The entire mass of this asteroid belt is estimated to be about 3% of the moon, with the majority of the mass coming from four asteroids, none of which are named after our Muse friends.
In the space where the main asteroid belt is, early astronomers expected there to be some kind of planet.
Hmm.
However, in 1801, Giuseppe Piazzi, an Italian astronomer, identified Ceres, which we now know is one of the larger asteroids in the main belt.
Yeah, we need to do a whole separate asterism on the mythology and astronomy of Ceres, and I'll add that to our list as well.
The term asteroid would not be proposed until 1802 by our guy, William Herschel, but by the 1850s, people were discussing this asteroid belt. But it's not truly clear by whom or when this was coined.
We've actually had several spacecrafts navigate the main asteroid belt, including Pioneer 10 in 1972, along with Pioneer 11, Voyager 1, Voyager 2, Ulysses, Cassini, and even Juno, which launched in 2011 to study Jupiter.
And we sent these into the asteroid belt without any collisions so far?
Yeah, so although there's a lot of asteroids out there, and they do collide with one another periodically, and when I say periodically, I mean every 10 million years for big collisions of asteroids over, 6 miles in radius, the main asteroid belt just really isn't dense enough for collision with spacecraft to be very likely.
Space is just like really, really big. I read the odds were less than 1 in 1 billion.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty reasonable odds, I would say less than 1 in 1 billion. But even though we've had a number of these spacecraft go through the asteroid belt, we have actually relatively few images of it. So instead, we get many of our images of asteroids from a number of very specific asteroid missions, and there are several more of those to come where we'll get to see close up some of these asteroids in the main belt.
There's a lot more we could say about asteroids, but for now, we'll leave it here to pick up on a future Asterism edition.
This has been Kit,
And Jordan,
sisters who love stars and stories
and we'll see you next time.
on Story Time.